So a couple of days ago I put to sleep a Facebook page I owned for almost 7 years, Captain Olimar. That page was the beginning of everything for me. You see how everyone has a story of how they began on the internet? Mine was creating that Facebook page. Well, technically I started making loquendos and YouTube poops in Spanish, but that's a story for another day. As weird as it might sound, that page helped me to grow to where I am today. I improved my English even further through there, I had a lot of fun interacting with the fans, and I made a bunch of dumb memes that, for better or worse, still follow me to this day.
If you need to learn how to talk to a lady, ask your mum.
But most importantly, I met a bunch of great people that to this day I call my friends. Remember Adam? That really cool guy that appeared on my Rayman 3 video and also forced me to watch Seinfeld with him and his dad? I met him through that page, and to this day he's still one of my best friends. Sometimes it's amazing what you can do with the power of the internet. So what does that have to do with this video? Well, to put it simple, Pikmin 2 was like the holy grail of that page. As soon as it was mentioned, boom, successful post. It was pretty insane how much people really wanted to see posts about that game. So when I left the page, I decided to replay the game and, to remember the good times and whatnot. And halfway in I thought, sure, why not? I'm gonna make a review about it. So here we are now, folks. For everyone who supported me through Captain Olimar, and for everyone who now supports me through this channel, here it is, my Pikmin 2 review. Also, before we begin, I have to comment, I love this cover. There's something about it I find so attractive. Maybe it's the clay models, maybe it's the giant chroma that shows the size relativity between characters, or maybe it's the chilling Louis. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but this is one of those covers that strangely makes me happy when I look at it. So anyway, let's begin now. Pikmin 2 takes place directly after the events of the first game, where Captain Olimar managed to repair his spaceship and return back home safely. But times for joys and celebrations are cut short because as soon as he lands on his home planet, he is hit with dire news that the company he works for is down in a massive debt. But a glimmer of hope surfaces when a bottle cap rock from the Pikmin planet turns out to be a pretty valuable treasure. This discovery pushes the president of the Hocotate Fry to send Olimar back to the planet to find more treasures in hopes of saving the company. Accompanying our main character we have the new recruit Louis, a silent guy with a close attachment to Box, a full modded spaceship known as the ship, and the returning help of the always lovable Pikmin. The Pikmin are about as familiar as they were previously. Reds don't care about fire and have the upper hand in combat, yellow ones can be thrown higher to reach more treasures and have now acquired an immunity to electricity, and blue comes back to take down the biggest threat in the entire game: water. But 2 adds more into the mix with the inclusion of the purple and white Pikmin. Purple Pikmin are slow, and I mean really slow. But they compensate this by having the rough strain of 10 Pikmin at the same time. In combat they can stun enemies and inflict absurd amounts of damage to the point of almost being straight up broken. The white Pikmin are the polar opposites. They are really fast and their main gimmick relies on being immune to poison. They can also poison enemies whenever they are eaten, making them great kamikazes if you have no heart to kill them, or their unique eyes give them the extra ability to see underground and dig for treasures that other Pikmin otherwise wouldn't be able to see. There is another extremely unique type of Pikmin that I'll mention down the road. The Pikmin are not the only ones who have increased in numbers, because Olimar now comes along with his partner, Louis. With 2 playable characters, you have the option to split your squad and divide tasks. The control is about the same as previously. You can quickly throw Pikmin at enemies and objects, call them back with your whistle, move them in the direction you want. You have different useful camera angles and you can split your squad by colors. There's a few added mechanics though, like changing captains on the go to take multiple tasks, or this cool thing that wasn't present before where, when you're about to throw a Pikmin but you accidentally pick the wrong one, you can press the B button to instantly change the color. A very small feature, but damn if it ain't very convenient. But there is one thing that I couldn't talk about in my Pikmin 1 video and I can finally do it now. The Wiimote. There's a natural and understandable thought that games with forced motion controls are inferior, but I am fully convinced that Pikmin games play way better with them and it's because of one small thing. The cursor. This alone allows for a faster, more precise gameplay. Throwing Pikmin at enemy weak points is way easier, and calling them back from longer distances is extremely convenient. I'm just not a big fan of how you control your army at the same time with the cursor, but honestly, with the other advantages I get with this control, I can definitely get behind that. The GameCube control is still pretty good for this kind of game, so choosing one version over the other is all a matter of preference. With 5 different types of Pikmin and 2 captains in your control, it will be natural to think you have to be extremely efficient to make the ends meet. But contrary to its prequel, Pikmin 2 doesn't have a time limit. You still have to go back to your ship at the end of the day, but you have an unlimited amount of days to pay back the company's debt. Not having to worry about time is a great deal, as you can pace the game to your own liking without having to fear a bad ending. On paper, this should make the game easier than its predecessor, but don't let that fool you because Pikmin 2 can get pretty damn challenging in its own right. There's a wider variety of hostile creatures on the planet, Mother Nature itself sets up a bigger amount of obstacles and hazards to make sure you make right use of all 5 different types of Pikmin, while combining the efforts of the captains in clever puzzles, some astonishing boss battles, or to conquer all the caves in the game. This is easily Pikmin 2's most defining feature. About 40% of the game is pretty much like how you remember it, but the rest of it will be spent exploring the underground. The caves are divided into multiple sub-levels. Some of them are randomized and you must overcome all of them and claim all the treasures inside with the number of Pikmin you enter with, so there is no way to respawn them there. Well, almost. There is a special type of Pikmin, unique to the caves, and let me start by saying, ¡Ay, qué adorables! Sometimes you might come across these little creatures known as Boltmen, a special type of Pikmin that has immunity to all 4 main hazards, so if you ever find yourself low in numbers, the Boltmen will become a saving grace to your entire team. Time doesn't move underground, so again, you can take all the time to carefully plan a strategy. The caves don't hold back in their challenge, as they can take quite a while to beat. There's an advantage where, if something bad happens, and by experience I can guarantee you, something bad will happen. You can always restart the game and start from the last sub-level you visited, so the game is quite forgiving in that aspect. Tedious? Quite a bit honestly, but I'll take this over restarting an entire cave. The caves are also the only places where you can find candy pop bots that allow you to get purple and white Pikmin, but here's where it lies one of my main issues. I already mentioned that the game makes sure you use all 5 different Pikmin for multiple situations. Before you enter a cave, you are told what kind of hazards you'll come across so you can decide how to make your Pikmin swap. I think that's great, because it emphasizes their unique abilities and because of that, not a single type of Pikmin becomes undermined. However, I think it sucks that the only way to get purple and white Pikmin are through caves, because you have to be extra careful to not lose them. The best example I can think of was here, the Citadel of Spiders. I entered this cave without a single white Pikmin because A, it said the cave didn't have any poison hazards, and B, I wanted to limit the risk of losing white Pikmin. Then I arrived to this floor where there was treasure underground and I had no means to get it because I didn't bring white Pikmin. So I beat the cave, got a few white Pikmin, and had to make all my way back to the specific sub-level to pick up that small treasure I couldn't get previously. And you can just say, well, if you worry that much, just farm the purple and white Pikmin in easy caves. I wish it was possible, but the game is very stingy in that aspect. Whenever you have a certain number of them in total, the candy pop bots do not spawn and the game never makes it clear where you can find them. So it's all about using every single one you find and take care of those special Pikmin at all costs. It's just a minor complaint, that doesn't deviate my sight from all the great improvements this game does over its predecessor. Aside from having more playable characters and alternatives to undertake challenges, the treasures themselves are more than a means to complete the game. Some of them serve as permanent upgrades to your inherent abilities. You can acquire immunities to hazards, a radar for treasure, a tremendously useful whistle that instantly procs Pikmin from the ground, or a rocket punch that increases the damage done by the playable characters. I love this punch so much. Not for its sheer usefulness, but because of this exact frame. It's ridiculous and dumb, but I love it. There's also a number of sprays who can freeze enemies or increase the power of your Pikmin. I already mentioned that the game overall is pretty tough, but it grants you the right tools to deal with the challenges ahead. The production values don't fall behind either. Don't even get me started on how wonderful the soundtrack is. It's just so good. I can't express how it does a great job to benefit the experience. Like, for example, the song that plays during the Wistful Wild, it perfectly capitalizes the fact that this is the final area of the game. It's very unusual to hear uplifting songs during the caves, so instead these areas are accompanied with a mysterious tone. I love how the songs throughout the game shift in tone depending on your current situation or who you are controlling. And the graphics, again, are a step up. The Pikmin look more vibrant and colorful. The game retains its natural art style combined with a cartoony feel within itself, and this allows anything of significance to clearly stand out. One of my favorite things in this game is the credit sequence. It's just so charming, I never get tired of saying it because it just looks so beautiful. Or maybe it's because it reminds me to A Bug's Life. Maybe. The caves themselves can be quite of a mixed bag visually. There's a great effort to add a lot of different settings to prevent them from being repetitive, but that can only work for so long, and during the endgame caves, they can potentially become quite tiresome visually, but I like how they always keep that sense of unease for what will come on the next floor. Both music and visuals still hold up very well for today's standards, but there is something that stands out to me. While writing this review, I was thinking about what are some of the most defining aspects as to why I love the Pikmin series. You know, other than being unique and challenging, and I reached the conclusion that it's the world itself. I've always had a thing for settings where the world around you is normal sized, but you are just very small. I find it interesting how developers can use everyday objects for fun challenges and clever level design, hence why I enjoy games like Toy Story 2 and Zelda the Minish Cap. The Pikmin series exemplifies this. It's pretty astonishing how much detail there is into this world. Like, for example, the most obvious ones. The treasures you find in the game. They can range from a piece of fruit, a Dr. Pepper bottle cap, an extremely creepy head of a baby doll, to a robes set complete with gyros. It just makes me think about the world that there was before the events of the game and what legacy remains from its previous inhabitants. But there are also more subtle details like the 4 main overworld areas. They represent the 4 seasons, but also upon closer inspection, you do notice that they are actually the same places from the first game, who have undergone a radical change due to the planet's climate. It brings more variety in areas to explore, but I also can't help but be amazed to how everything changed so drastically between the short span of time between the 2 games. And this goes even further with how the living creatures of the planet have evolved in order to survive. Like, some bulbors have grown hair to adapt to frigid climates, some bugs have managed to coexist with machines for self-defense. For some reason, there is an unholy beast from another dimension pursuing me around. The game is just bursting with subtle details and I can't help but admire the fantastic effort behind all of it. But there's a cherry on the top that truly shows the attention to detail in this game, and I know a lot of you guys will agree with me on this one. It's the inclusion of the Piklopedia and treasure menus, where you can check in higher detail the creatures and treasures you have seen throughout the journey, with every single one of them having a comment from Olimar and even Louis to some extent. This alone makes the characters and the world itself feel more alive. It's funny to see how the ship will go to advertise products from what humanity left behind. I find it fascinating how all the monsters in the game have scientific names and a short description of their behavior in a natural environment. I love to see what the characters think about their surroundings. Olimar, whose only line of dialogue is his own name, he explodes with personality because of this. That is not to say Pikmin 1 had none of that. There were entry logs at the end of every day that gave you a little bit more insight to those things I mentioned, but here it's escalated even further. There's not much story behind these games, but their world is so intriguing that they do a phenomenal job in environmental storytelling. Pikmin 2 just knocks it out of the park. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm overthinking this, but that's what I find great about the series. It's not the main reason as to why I play the games, but damn do I love being absorbed in this manner. There is no other way for me to describe it. I can't find any more words. Pikmin 2 is an incredible game. It's the perfect example of a sequel done right. It's bigger, better, and larger than its predecessor. It retains the fundamentals of what made the first game so lovable and eliminates the negative aspects. I'm not going to pretend like 2 doesn't have its own set of problems because it really does. I didn't even mention how sometimes the Pikmin AI can be stupid, to not sugarcoat it. And trust me when I say this game is not absent of infuriating and bullshit moments due to the cave's random nature. but it just improves on every single area. The control is way more refined, the sense of urgency is not as punishing as before, the game sets a bigger challenge by including more puzzles, environmental hazards, and a wider variety of enemies. It makes a great use of its extended mechanics to benefit the gameplay, and its world tells a bigger story than what it actually shows. And just when you think the experience is over, the game does more, offering a memorable single-player experience. And if that's not enough, you can also tackle the game's challenge mode to beat caves with different stipulations, which, by the way, you can play with a friend, or spend some time together playing the game's actually good battle mode. When I was recording footage for this review, I could have easily stopped when I had everything I needed, but I kept going and going until I 100%ed the main campaign because it is that good. Pikmin 2 is many things for me. My favorite GameCube game, despite recording the Wii version, a key factor of what made my Facebook page a fun time, a unique experience, but most importantly, Pikmin 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. It's no wonder why Pikmin 2 was the golden relic of that page. We just really like talking about that game. It brought the community together and gave us a lot of good times and fun memories. It might sound I'm overreacting this, but I'm not kidding. That page did me a lot of good. And I'm sure it did the same for some fellas out there too. I just can't imagine how different things would be if I hadn't created it. Almost 7 years is quite a long time, but time moves on and so do we. So, thank you all for those good memories. If Captain Olimar was a fun page, it's because you guys made it that way. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining in, I really appreciate that. Next time, I'm planning to do something a little bit off topic, so hopefully you look forward to it. Until then, you guys better take care, because I'll be seeing you next time.